Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. I have a big BC politics update for you guys today, so strap in. You will probably find it interesting whether or not you live in British Columbia because some crazy stuff happened that should be just universally funny. So I'm going to start off with a story of a leftist activist attempting to shut down OneBC events in Penticton. That is the OneBC party that I work for in the legislature and then volunteer time for helping grow the party. Then I want to talk about John Rustad's BC Conservative Leadership Review, how much of a fiasco that was, and then him kicking out Eleanor Sturko from the BC Conservative Caucus. And then finally, I do just want to play a clip of OneBC leader Dallas Brodie speaking at the UBCM event. I thought she had some really, really good takes when she was on stage. And although the very liberal and elitist crowd at UBCM do not like her, Dallas Brodie definitely represents the middle of politics. I don't mean like some, obnoxious centrist who has no opinion on everything, on anything, and says things like, "Oh, we should be less divisive," and nobody could possibly disagree with that. We are definitely a party on the right, but it happens to be that our policies are what the average person agrees with overall, not the sort of average like two-bit liberal politician that goes to UBCM. Anyways, but I'm going to tell a bit of a story about that later. First, we need to talk about this leftist activist named Loki Boki attempting to shut down one BC events in Penticton. We'll first start off with this article that says PTCC turns down booking request from 1BC. And this is a photo of our House leader, Tara Armstrong. So the Penticton Trade and Convention Center had like canceled on 1BC because this activist Loki Boki was going around and basically saying that we're racist, that we're transphobic, all this stuff. It's just the usual things. You're racist, you're an ist, you're a phobe of some kind, and so this center shouldn't be associating with them. And this is absolutely ridiculous because it's a publicly funded organization. And right here in the article, it says Armstrong and Brody will be in Penticton next week, but not at the Penticton Trading Convention Center where they had originally planned. And so it says, quote, after careful consideration, we regret to inform you that we are unable to accommodate your booking request at this time, reads a response from the Oak View Group. They manage the PTCC. Quote, our venue aligns with the city's core values, including strong commitment to inclusivity and reconciliation with Indigenous communities. Um, okay, well, so what are we doing wrong? Do they just mean that they are beholden to the reconciliation industry that dislikes truth so much that even if you make the factual claim that there are not dead bodies under the Kamloops residential school, let alone children clandestinely murdered and buried there, that is apparently too much for them. If you say something that is true, that is going against reconciliation. You can no longer speak at a public facility. Anyways, so that's just to flavor the story a little bit here to show what happened. I also want to show that there is now a protest planned in Penticton at the place that the event is now happening at. By the way, I will be linking in the description below the event section of the 1BC website. We have an event happening in Mill Bay on Vancouver Island near Victoria. And then we have one in Penticton at the Art Up Studio. Big shout out to the Art Up Studio because they are not bending to the pressure of this leftist activist. And in fact, they leaked out all the messages that this person was putting out that they are now claiming to be doxing. Yes, they are being doxed by someone just exposing their bad behavior. Not their personal information, just showing that they're going around messaging people trying to smear a political party. And so here is what this article says. It's from Castanet, which is a very lefty organization or media group, but we will use them for now. It says protest planned at Penticton 1BC political party town hall. Conservative upstart BC political party 1BC is holding a town hall in Penticton this weekend, and that has triggered plans for a protest. 1BC is a right-wing group officially given political party status through Elections BC this past June. It was founded by two independent MLAs, Dallas Brodie and Tara Armstrong, who had reportedly clashed internally with BC Conservative Party, resulting in BC Conservative leader John Rustad kicking Dallas Brodie out of caucus. And then it goes up to talk about what's going on. And it says right here, Rainbow Connection Penticton has planned a protest of the October 2nd event. Quote, MLA Dallas Brodie uses OneBC to spread hate against the 2Ls LGBTQ plus community, the indigenous community, and is against important environmentalism policies. Reads in an email allegations from Rainbow Connection Penticton founder Loki Boki. It's so funny that, okay, I'm used to the whole you're an ist, you're a phobe, you deny residential schools nonsense where if you say that certain things that did not happen, well, you must think residential schools were fake. It's like, oh my goodness, shut up. And then you're phobic because you don't want gender theory in the classroom and you want men out of women's sports. Oh, you're phobic. But I find it hilarious. They are also against important environmentalism policies. Like that really it's the greatest display of the omni cause that it's not just a queer organization as they call it. It is now also an environmental pro-indigenous queer organization, and we also believe in communism. It's like, just call yourself a leftist group. You're just using these identity labels in order to try and give yourself like the moral high ground in order to go around trying to bully people for hosting an event. But again, good job to the Art Up Studio completely ignoring these people, because I now want to cut over to the things that they had been posting. This was posted on our own OneBC X account, and this is what is being called doxing, which we will cut to later. As we said on our X account, it says Loki Boki, an NDP supporter and Pride activist, tried unsuccessfully to bully a Penticton small business into canceling our event with threats of negative reviews. Good news, the OneBC town hall will proceed as planned. And again, I encourage you all to be there. I can't be there. I just can't possibly be at every OneBC event in British Columbia because I still live in Calgary and I'd be flying out every other weekend. But I definitely encourage you guys to show up, meet our leader, Dallas Brodie, and our team. But let's just look through some of these posts right here. And so this is Loki Boki's Facebook page. And no, this is not doxing for me to show someone's public Facebook page, especially as they are using this profile to go around attacking us. And this person in their banner shows BC votes NDP to stop conservatives. So a very nonpartisan individual here. And then this is what the Art Up Studio had released. And it shows Loki Boki messaging them saying, I'd recommend not hosting OneBC during their upcoming rally. They are a racist, transphobic group that follows the MAGA rule book, and you business may be badly reviewed for it. Not really the best spelling and grammar, but we can always, And then there's just the generic auto reply, hey, thank you for contacting us, blah, blah, blah. And they then follow up saying, I am the founder of a large queer community that is considering protesting their presence. And it's like, go for it, do it. And I encourage you, if you show up to the Penticton event, ignore these idiots. They're just fools, they're simpletons, they're completely brainwashed, and they actually believe they're in the right. That's how you know these people are delusional. They are trying to bully this organization and stop them from organizing, like from holding the event, but they are the ones being attacked. They're the ones being doxxed because when they try to shut down your event, someone said, hey, this person's trying to shut down this event. That would be like if I was holding a talk and I was at the front of the room trying to speak and the person was going around saying, he's a racist, he's this. And it was just like obvious slander. And at some point they get to somebody saying, that's wrong. And then they like call them out in the room. They're like, oh, thanks for doxing me. I'm only trying to ruin this person's day. I'm only trying to mess with the person and ruin their reputation. Hey, stop calling me out. This hurts my heart, bro. But now we have here another email, and it says, this is the event that center that got that was shut down in Penticton, the Penticton Trade and Convention Center. This is the email to OneBC, and it says, we can't have you because you're against our core values. And the second line I hadn't read yet was, given the nature of your organization's publicly stated positions and priorities, we have determined that proceeding with this booking would not be an alignment with the principles that guide our operations. We appreciate your understanding and wish you the best in finding a suitable venue for your event. And this is going to go to the UBCM stuff a bit later. It's so pathetic. They're like, well, this doesn't line up with our city and our organization's core values. It's like, shut up. Goodness. The things that Dallas Brodie, OneBC represent, that I represent because I work for them, is the median opinion of British Columbians. Get men out of women's sports. And so support parental rights. Get inappropriate materials out of the classroom, libraries. Get gender theory out of the classrooms. Stop the reconciliation industry from fleecing taxpayers for stuff that is only dividing people even more. Let's actually have truth in this province and not let activists say that there's a bunch of children's bodies buried somewhere. They won't excavate, but you also should sign this land deal over here. That we should cut taxes, stuff like that. Our party is literally privately prosecuting a terrorist in British Columbia, Charlotte Cates, that the province itself will not prosecute. The Attorney General, Nikki Sharma, refuses to move on the issue, but we're the extremists, even though we're going out and opposing extremists like pro-Hamas people and Khalistanis and all this other stuff. It's so stupid. Oh my goodness, you're out of line with our organization's values. No, you're out of sync with most people. That's what's going on here. And so that was it for that post from OneBC. I now just want to jump over to the stuff that Loki Boki had a problem with us for. Here we go. This is on our own website, and they've just put it into this neat little graphic. And under the events and activities Penticton group, Loki Boki posts, OneBC is a political party led by 2 Canadian MLAs. They will be having a rally at Art Up Studio October 2nd, 6 to 8 p.m. This is some of the OneBC's more harmful platforms pulled from their own website. Oh my! This person can't even write. It's actually kind of sad. They can't. This is a graphic they made. It wasn't even just like a little post that they put out on Facebook and they misspelled something. They made this graphic. They had to look at the graphic before they downloaded it onto their computer to then post, and they still got stuff wrong. Like, far be it from me to say that you should always have perfect grammar, but when it's something like this, attempt it. The school system has truly failed Loki here. But let's read through some of these. So we got number 2 from our platform here. Allow for the creation of a private healthcare insurance market. Oh yeah, that's harmful platform points. In a province where we cannot actually get healthcare, British Columbia's ERs are constantly closing down. You will wait years before getting a surgery, but if we open up a private insurance market, that could cause harm. Okay. Point number 4 here. Provide a politically neutral space for post-secondary learning by removing all woke administrative policies, including DEI and mandatory land acknowledgements. Oh yes, very harmful. I call that based. Take greater control over immigration policy to end mass immigration in BC and promote cultural integration. That's great. Attract capital investment in rental housing by eliminating rent controls on new construction. Yes, because rent controls stop the supply of housing from going up. In fact, when rent controls go in places like New York City, you will have units pulled off the market because it's not even worth renting them for anything at that point. And then removing SOGI and all political activism from curriculum. Schools should equip students with knowledge and skills needed to contribute meaningfully to our society. Going up top, bring capital investment and local opportunity back to BC by removing UNDRIP and all banned veto powers from BC. Defund the reconciliation industry by ending all voluntary transfers of cash, land, control over public resources on the basis of racial identity or historical grievances, and the practice of mandatory land acknowledgements within the government and government-funded institutions. Require street names to be placed, street names and place names to be in English. Get pipelines, resource development projects out of the penalty box and into the game by rewriting BC's Environmental Assessment Act and other unfair rules penalizing development. Axe Clean BC and the Industrial Carbon Tax, which discriminate against BC energy companies and drive up costs for British Columbians. I think that all sounds fantastic. Apparently, Loki Boki, king of great grammar, thinks that all that is very harmful. I think it's fantastic, but, different strokes for different folks. Now, I just need to bring this up on screen. I have to load the post because I don't have it saved as a tab on my computer, but I'll just bring it up on screen right in front of myself here. So they now are saying that we are doxing them because Art Up Studio gave us the messages of them trying to cancel our event, and we posted them. So right here, it says Loki Boki says, be careful with this extremist political party. They already doxed me to their large audience, and there is comments on their post about wanting to fight me. No, there wasn't. There was not comments of people wanting to fight them. There's people opposing the protest. Nobody's trying to fight them. Maybe people call them a coward who couldn't actually fight, but they're trying to undermine other people and get them thrown out of polite society. No one's trying to fight this person. They're histrionic and they don't know what they're talking about. And the person below says, I hope you reported them to the police RCMP. Pretty sure doxing is a criminal offense. They made you a target the same as Sheer did to Rachel Gilmore. These people need to be held accountable to their misdeeds. I hope they try and report us to the RCMP because that would be considered a false police report. And in fact, they could be charged for trying to report something so transparently stupid. So yeah, if you guys are in the Mill Bay area, that event's happening in the next few days or so. Or if you are in Penticton, make sure you go to our events page, sign up, show up. There's about 50, 60, 70 people going to each one at the moment. It'd be great if you guys were able to be there in order to show support and oppose crazy people like this who think that having basic conservative opinions makes you an extremist. But now let's move on to the leadership review of John Rustad. Didn't go so well for him, but it was the most hilarious result from my perspective. Now, obviously, I work for OneBC, and I will put on the hat just to show support. I like OneBC. I work for them in the legislature. I, in fact, only make $25,000 a year working for OneBC in the legislature. I insisted on effectively the lowest possible pay. That's like a third of what the starter staffer salary is. But I'm making a very small amount of money because it's not about the money other than I just need a small salary to make it worth my while to fly out to Victoria and make less money on the channel in order for me to help out. But we find it hilarious what happened to John because he got 70.6% of the vote in the leadership review, which is, let's be clear, a terrible result. Only like a little more than 1,200 people even bothered voting in this entire thing, and he only got 70.6% of the vote, despite him and his team being being like the only group pretty much operating the entire time trying to get people out to vote. So they were pushing hard for people to go and vote to keep him as leader, and he still only gets 70.6% of the vote. Bonnie Crombie just went down in Ontario for getting 57%, and Merritt Stiles is under massive pressure to step down, and she got like 68%. 70 is not good. Good is above 85. That's when people actually like you. 70 is that you have an organization, you can get people to say yes to you because there's no one else really opposing you. Because a leadership review is a yes/no vote. It's kind of hard to get people to show up for a no unless a leader is just egregiously ideologically or politically corrupt. Is John Rustad one of those things? He actually is, but his superpower is he's like old Uncle Joe Biden. He is so boring and comatose, nobody really even notices that he's doing all this crap. And so with John, they rigged their AGM. They have been watering down their platform. They don't even believe in getting rid of DRIPA anymore, the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act, which is the legislated version of UNDRIP. They don't even believe in getting rid of it anymore. Yes, John even today just said that he will vote to repeal DRIPA. Except his own House leader, Alia Warbus, is a supporter of DRIPA. So many of his MLAs speak positively about DRIPA in the legislature, and they attack the NDP for not holding to it strongly enough. I don't trust these people at all because they flip-flop all the time on what they think about different policies. In fact, the executive director of the BC Conservative Party, Angelo Isidoro, went on Mo Amir's podcast and even said that, things like DRIPA would be up to a free vote because he used it as the example of a policy that people can disagree on when he was talking about the need for less caucus control and free votes. Let me tell you, The caucus is very heavily controlled in the BC Conservatives. Just when they flip flop to the left, they act like this is just, it's just about freedom. It's just about trying to make an open and inclusive big tent party. And that is what has led to John Rustad kicking Eleanor Sturko out of the BC Conservative caucus. Now, let's be clear. Sturko is not a conservative. She is a leftist. She is somebody who used to attack people like John for even opposing Soji back when he actually did kind of oppose Soji. She is very left wing, and she was kicked out of the Conservative Party, not because they are trying to ideologically correct, but just because he was getting called out for also attempting to rig his own leadership review, because in Kelowna, 2,100 fake memberships were basically created overnight, probably because they were planning on padding out John's vote by just having a bunch of votes just inserted into the box, or a bunch of people showing up pretending like they're other people in order to throw some more yes votes John's way, because again, 70% is pretty embarrassing for him. And so now we have Eleanor out attacking John from the left after he's already kicked out people to his right by removing Dallas Brodie and having Jordan Keeley go sit as an independent, and Tara Armstrong and Dallas Brodie starting the OneBC party. It's just a dysfunctional party at this point. They are more than $3 million in debt after paying off $1 million in current liabilities. In fact, I heard they had to take out another $2 million loan just to make ends meet, because their donations are going into the floor right now, because it's a party where members don't have any rights. The platform is just a suggestion when it is something that conservatives actually care about. And right now, the party is just silencing anyone who thinks that John may not be the leader to bring them into the next election. This is why when people are like, well, you just need to be able to beat the Liberals, just ignore all the problems and just help the Conservatives, because we can't have another NDP government. It's like, well, do you think these guys can actually win? They're in debt. They have a feckless leader. They're internally massively corrupt. And even then, Sturko wasn't even kicked out for ideological reasons. My prediction is she'll probably be back in caucus once the caucus actually kicks out John, and then the party will lurch left under the justification that, oh my goodness, we kicked out Sturko, our progressive MLA, our progressive standard bearer. It shows that the party was just not being progressive enough, and now we need to be even more progressive so something like that doesn't happen again. I have all these insane clips of some of their MLAs just saying ridiculous stuff. Like, again, their House leader, MLA Warbus, she had this 3-hour interview where she's just constantly saying delusional statements like that she changed her first name because her full name used to be Teresa Point at birth. She got married, so her last name is Warbus. But then she changed her name from Teresa to Alia because she wants to decolonize people's tongues by getting them to say an indigenous last name. That's not just because you enjoy the culture and you want to embrace the culture that part of your family's from. That's a delusional thing to do. It's frankly really weird. That's just odd. And then saying like, oh, I changed my name to one I had in a past life and all this stuff. It's like that. I'm sorry, that's a very weird thing to have done. That you changed your name to one you had in a past life, and also to decolonize people's tongues when they say your name. If this was an NDP politician, the Conservatives would be attacking them right now because that's insane. Like the one lady who talked about how we are all uninvited guests and white colonizers in British Columbia. So yeah, things in the the BC Conservative Caucus are not going so hot right now. But let's end off on something positive by playing a clip of OneBC leader Dallas Brodie when she was at the UBCM event. So she was actually basically set up by UBCM so that when her speaking part came, it was right when they basically called the room to go to lunch. They literally 10 minutes before Brodie spoke, basically said, hey, by the way, guys, lunch is on. And then they told everyone to like basically leave the room. And then they introduced Brodie to speak because it is a group of leftist ideologues in that room who all get into office in local municipal elections because not enough conservatives tend to care about municipal politics. And they think she's an extremist. I know people who are walking around the room and talking to people, both from the media as well as from provincial politics, listening to people kind of mull about at like a cocktail hour. And everyone was whining about Dallas because she's so extreme. for saying things like this that the average person 100% agrees with.
And here's the hard truth. The billions of dollars flowing to so-called reconciliation programs is dividing British Columbians, isn't even helping Indigenous people. Our own research...
You can barely hear it because obviously she's the only one mic'd. There are people even in the small audience that's still left yelling shame at that. They're like, shame, shame. Stop saying something that's demonstrably true. That Indigenous people in British Columbia are given massive amounts of money into their band councils that oftentimes are ripping them off and not actually giving them the money. But we give massive amounts of money to band councils, to the reconciliation industry in general, and yet still Indigenous peoples, not only are their actual their financial positions weaker than ever, but also the life expectancy is going down because the people in the reconciliation industry don't even care about Indigenous people. They use them like poverty props. They'll take the money in and they'll make sure the people stay as poor as possible because it makes it easier to ask for money next time. There are stories of Indigenous band councils basically stealing money and not giving it to their members at all, not distributing it past a few $1,000s up front. And then you'll have reserves that have clean water on them that gets piped into other cities, but they do not have clean water themselves because to solve the problem would mean that you can no longer basically demand more support from the government. It's ridiculous.
Which indicates that the NDP has spent $8.5 billion on so-called reconciliation programs since 2017. And what is the result? Life expectancy for Indigenous people has actually dropped by 6 years. That's a well-known fact. Let me take just one example. This year, the Attorney General is spending $20 million to indigenize the justice system with zero defined deliverables on what that's going to bring to taxpayers. By reallocating those funds alone, we could double the number of provincial court judges in 3 years. And that would make everyone safer, Indigenous and non-Indigenous alike. OneBC will also defund this reconciliation industry and instead fund equal justice for all British Columbians.
I don't know any normal person who would disagree with that. We spend billions of dollars on nothing every single year. And then we also are making the lives of Indigenous people worse because the way DRIPA works and the way UNDRIP works is it basically defines Indigenous people like socialists. The Indigenous people are like genetically socialist. And so they actually can't have their own private property on reserve lands. Everything's done by the band council. Everything's collectively done. It's like, isn't that racist? To basically imply that these people cannot have individual freedoms and rights. That's disgusting to me. But it's normal in British Columbia's woke political establishment to think that what Dallas Brodie was saying there is somehow wrong or shameful or racist. It's not. In fact, she's one of the few people who actually seems to care about Indigenous people, whereas the establishment wouldn't care if Indigenous people are dying from drug overdoses or living in poverty or living in high crime areas because they don't want to solve those problems. The problems keep the industry going, so why not just let that happen? It's not Indigenous people's fault in a lot of ways. They have built a massive stone wall around them effectively to keep them hemmed in and from actually prospering. It's disgusting. But anyways, so that should be it for this video, guys. Again, if you're in British Columbia, check out our events page and show up to the nearest one to you. And I will see you guys all later.